You're going to learn something here today that you probably haven't heard before. We're going to start talking by Q. I'm talking into my ear pods here, so not the greatest microphone, but you'll have to bear with me here. So the QAnon situation here, there's a lot of people talking about QAnon and how they're this crackpotty conspiracy theory group and whatnot. I'm here to tell you it's not what it appears to be, in my opinion anyways. It's not what it appears to be. Now, a little information goes a long way. And we're going to look at some information that you haven't heard about before. I'm pretty sure about that. I dig in pretty deep, and so I'm going to share my findings with you from the last 35 years. So let's get right into this. QAnon. What does Q represent? Keep in mind that it's QAnon, as in Q anonymous. Why is it anonymous? Let's look at this right here. We have QAnon, and even here you have the Gadsden flag. It's reinvented to have a Q instead of a spirally serpent. We're going to come back to this, but QAnon is this group that's fighting for liberties and so forth. Now, I personally believe that this is a Jesuitical system that was started, and naive individuals jumped on board with this and ran with it. And I'll show you why I believe that. Q is this right here. This is Q, the pentagram, and it represents the balancing of the four elements. This is occult teachings. You have to balance out the four elements within yourself, earth, air, fire, and water, before you can evolve spiritually. That's why the fifth element is spirit. That's what Q is. That is the fifth element, or quintessence it's called. I'll get to that in a second here. But we also have this seen in the Olympic flag here. Now, this is the Olympic logo that Hitler created. Hitler created this logo. He was steeped in occultism. He was involved in these secret societies like the Thule Society and so forth, or Thule Society if you want to call it that. But he was involved in occultism. He was a staunch occultist, just like most of the world leaders today are into the occult teachings from secret societies, from college fraternities and so forth. They're steeped in this stuff. And this is what the Olympic flag represents. It represents the balancing of the four elements, earth, air, fire, water, and they're balancing each other out to bring forth fifth element, rising from the four. This is the spiritual rebirth that occultists are looking for. That's what the flame represents, light, spiritual light, just like the Statue of Liberty has that torch in her hand. That's spiritual enlightenment. The awakening of the third eye is essentially what this is. So we have this and this, all the same thing here, okay? And this is what Q is. It's quintessence. Now, we see this also in the occult logo created by Eliphas Levi, and he created this image of Baphomet. You may or may not be familiar with this logo, but it's a balancing of opposites. You have male and female in the same body. You have up and down. You have beast, man, and then here you have the angel wings. So the threefold nature of perfected man, body, mind, and spirit is what this represents. But you have all the balancing. You have the caduceus here with two snakes intertwined here going up a pole. We'll talk about that shortly. Solve, coagula. So you have solve or dissolve, and coagula as in coagulate, come together. You have all these opposites, and then you have the torch here rising up, enlightenment, with the pentagram on his forehead. Keep that in mind, on the forehead. And the top of the point points upwards, spirit. This is quintessence. This is the pentagram, or spirit. So he is a spiritually evolved individual who's balanced all of his opposites out. That's what this represents. All of these opposites coming together, merging together. Keep that in mind too. So that's quintessence. And that is the fifth element, quintessence, or Q, as it's often called. The fifth and highest element in ancient and medieval philosophy that permeates all nature and is the substance composing the celestial body. So you're becoming as the gods. You are being spiritually awakened, keep that in mind, as you evolve spiritually by balancing out your opposites, your yin and your yang and so forth, your earth and your air and your fire and your water. Everything within you is balancing by looking within yourself to see where you're imbalanced. You may be impatient. You need more patience. You need to balance that out. So you're balancing yourself out to evolve spiritually, become as the gods, because they too have balanced themselves out. This is the occult teaching. And so that's quintessence, okay? We need to keep this in mind. That is quintessence, the fifth element. You probably remember the movie by Bruce Willis, or with Bruce Willis, called The Fifth Element. That's what this is all about. They put their occult teachings in Hollywood. They surround people with these occult teachings to subtly introduce people to these teachings. People think they're taking them on themselves, learning them themselves, but they're actually being indoctrinated into these teachings by putting them in movies and in songs and so forth. And so people are being conditioned into embracing occultism while simultaneously they're tearing down religion to make religion look bad. And so that's quintessence. And it's all about awakening your third eye so you can get fire in the minds of men. You can get a spiritual awakening born of water, your physical birth, and of spirit, fire, in your forehead, awakening your third eye. That spiritual awakening, which is a kundalini awakening. It's awakening the kundalini energy within you in your sacrum, rising it up your spine by balancing yourself out until your third eye awakens. That's where the fire comes into the minds of men. Light or gnosis, knowledge, recognition that you are God, you are one, we're all connected, we're all God. So this is the occult lie. It's the same lie that was taught in the Garden of Eden from the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil opposites or polarities. By balancing these opposites out, you can awaken yourself and realize that you are God. This is the same teaching that was taught in the very beginning in the garden. It's the same teaching that's resurfacing now through people like Oprah Winfrey and so forth. And this is going to be the end time system that most people are going to gravitate towards. They're being conditioned to hate the old systems, religion, politics, economics. It's all greedy, it's all corrupt, all this. That's by design, to get people to hate it. Simultaneously, they're indoctrinating people into the occult teachings. This is how we will evolve spiritually as a society and so forth, by embracing these occult teachings, awakening our third eyes, realizing that we're all connected, we're all God, we're all one. There won't be any more war since we're all connected, we're all brotherhood and all this kind of stuff. So it's a trap. And the Bible warns us about this. This is what's coming. So that's what quintessence is. That's what Q is. And that's why it's anonymous right now. Because society hasn't balanced itself out yet to evolve spiritually. But that's what they're working on, to balance everyone out, bring everyone into this global collective where we're all thinking the same, acting the same, doing the same, embracing these occult teachings. Then society can evolve spiritually. That's where quintessence comes in. That's why it's QAnon right now. It's anonymous until society comes together, and it's no longer anonymous. We have the spiritual rebirth as a society. So that's what QAnon is all about. So now, how to open your third eye chakra for a spiritual awakening. That's what this is all about, awakening your third eye on your forehead. This spiritual awakening, spirit being quintessence, or the pentagram, like we saw here. You're trying to awaken your third eye. That's why on the picture of Baphomet, it's right on his forehead. You're awakening it, and light is coming into you. And obviously, it's not true light. It's darkness that masquerades as light. It's, and the Bible warns us about that. It's not light, it's darkness. But people are going to think it's light. People are going to think it's truth. People are going to think it's loving and kind and all this. When the exact opposite is true. It's deception is what it is. That's why the false prophet causes fire to come down from the skies. It's going to be this demonic spiritual presence on the earth. People being opening themselves up to these entities is what's going to happen. That's what the spiritual awakening is that everyone's talking about. It's not an awakening at all. It's a deadening is what it is. The only spiritual awakening that truly saves a person is through Jesus Christ. That is the awakening you need. His death and resurrection on the cross. He died for the sins for mankind. He warned us about all of this deception in the last days, and this is what's coming. They're trying to introduce society to this Kundalini awakening, making it seem like, oh, the religious leaders were trying to hide this from you, and corrupt individuals in politics were trying to hide the truth about you. You're truly one with the universe. They don't want you to know that. Everyone's connected. We're all God. If we awaken our Kundalini energy within us, we too can free ourselves from the bondage of this material world where there's corruption and all this. But we have to do it as a society. They say that at the base of your spine there's a serpent force that needs to be awakened. And you have to do that by balancing out your opposites, your four elements, your yin and your yang and all this. You balance yourself out, and this serpent rises up your spine. The Kundalini energy is rising up until your third eye awakens. That's when you make contact with the spirit world. Now, that is called the seat of your soul, the pineal gland in your forehead. Incidentally, that's why the Vatican has a huge pine cone with two peacocks, one on each side. It represents your pineal gland, the awakening of your third eye by balancing opposites, the two peacocks, one on each side, male and a female. That's what that represents. And so they're trying to get people to look within themselves, balance yourselves out. So this serpent rises up your spine. That speaks volumes right there. Satan is a serpent. And so you're getting light from Lucifer, an angel who masquerades as an angel of light. That's what the Bible says. So he's acting like he's giving you light, but he's leading you into darkness as you open yourself up to this Luciferian force that's going to awaken you to the spiritual reality of it. You are God. We're all connected. Same lie told in the Garden of Eden. So that is what the spiritual awakening that everyone is talking about is about. And that you'll notice that, I'll enlarge this here. You'll notice that this serpent coils around 3.5 times. It starts at the back, comes around once, comes around twice, comes around 3 times, and then 3.5 times up the spine there. That is Kundalini energy. And we have that in the Gadsden flag here. This is the so-called Patriot flag. Now, it was created by a Freemason, go figure, because Masons are staunch occultists. They believe that they are God. We're all connected. We're all one. So this was created by a Freemason. It's used by the Patriot movement. It's used by the Patriot movement because the Patriot movement is part of this deception to get people to go along with us, to rise up against the bankers, rise up against all that's old, and we're going to embrace something new as a global collective. We all have to come together. We have to bring in something new because the greedy bankers, the Rothschilds, and all of these individuals who work for the Jesuits, by the way, they're trying to enslave us. So they create this fake enemy, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the deep state and all this stuff. So people rise up against that, and they demand something new. And what's the something new that everyone's going to demand? This occult philosophy. And this is the 3.5 coils of Kundalini. 1, 2, 3.5. So it's right in their logos. People don't understand what this means. Don't tread on me. Why don't tread on me? Because Jesus tread on the serpent in the book of Genesis, and they're saying, no. You're not going to tread on me. I am God. I am God. You're not going to tread on me. I'm going to evolve spiritually myself by raising up my Kundalini energy, 3.5 coils, open my third eye. No one's going to tread on me, not even Jesus Christ. So that's what this all represents. And there's the 3.5 coils of Kundalini in Revelations chapter 1, and this talks about Kundalini energy, 3.5 coils, and such and such. And so it's all connected to the serpent force. Now the Bible says in the last days, the Antichrist, a world leader, is going to rise up. And only the King James Bible says this, by the way. That's why I only use the King James. It's the only accurate Bible. It says that a leader is going to rise up, the Antichrist, and he's going to honor the God of forces. And that's what this is. It's Kundalini force, Kundalini energy. It's the forces. Use the force, Luke. You know, it's all the same concept, all the same teachings. So let's carry on here. That's why you have the all-seeing eye, your third eye on the top of the dollar bill, the pyramid. You have an awakened third eye by balancing your 4 elements. That's why when you look down on a pyramid, there's 4 corners, and they all go up to the top. They're being balanced. Earth, air, fire, water, being balanced until you get to the 5th element, which is at the top. There's no capstone on it right now on this pyramid in Egypt, but there will be a capstone just like on the dollar bill. That's the capstone. It's your awakened third eye, but it's also Lucifer. And that is what's going to give light to society in the last days. This occult philosophies headed up by Lucifer, headed up by the Antichrist, and headed up by the false prophet, a false trinity, a knockoff of the true trinity of Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So that is what's coming, and that's what this represents. People are helping to bring this about by thinking they're rising up against the bad guys, against the deep state and all that. But in the end, this is where it's going to be, a one-world global collective where everyone is enlightened. And that's what the Masonic dollar bill represents. That's where they're leading everyone, by deception, strong delusion. And that's what the pyramid represents. Now, if we go to pharaohs from Egypt, they had the same beliefs. And that's why you have the serpent on his forehead. It's awakened his third eye. And that's what this all represents, the awakening of the third eye to become as God. There's an X over his heart, crossing over here. There's the letter X there. That's where you get X Factor from. That's where you get Xbox from, X-Files from. It's all about balancing opposites, bringing the opposites together, the 4 elements together. Just like here, you have the 4 elements, an X crossing over. So balancing the 4 elements, this represents your heart, where spirit is. And so once you balance yourself out, you can evolve spiritually from the heart, or the Sacred Heart of Mary in the Catholic Church. And that's why they rely on Mary so much in the Catholic Church. We'll get to that in a second. But here we have the Star of Ishtar. So this here, the Egyptian belief system, and all of this Egyptian, the pyramids and so forth, go back to ancient Babylon. And that's what the end time system is going to be called. It's Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. It goes back to Mystery Babylon, these teachings. That's the teachings that are going to be around in the last days. Babylonian teachings that teach you that if you balance your opposites, you can become as gods. And so that is going to be in place in the last days, and it is. It's coming on strong. It's going to be headed up by the Catholic Church through the Jesuitical system, through the Jesuits, through the Counter-Reformation, trying to draw everyone back to Rome into this mystical Babylonian system. And that's why you have the Star of Ishtar from ancient Babylon, the 8-pointed star, right in the Vatican here, all over the place. The Star of Ishtar, because Ishtar is the sacred goddess. She is Kundalini. She is Isis from Egypt. She's the sacred goddess from all of these different cultures. After Babylon, after the Tower of Babel fell, all of these cultures went to, like, the Mayan culture, Egyptian culture, Chinese culture, and that they all took these teachings with them. And that's why the sacred goddess is found in all of these religions, whether we're talking about the Egyptian or the Mayan. They all had a sacred goddess. This is a symbol for the sacred goddess, the 8-pointed star. That's Ishtar, that's Isis, but it's also Mary from the Catholic Church, the Virgin Mary. That's why they have such high significance, or place Mary on such a high pedestal in the Catholic Church, because she is Kundalini. She is Isis. She is Ishtar. The Mother Mary from Catholicism, not from the Bible, but from Catholicism, is Kundalini. That's why they say that to get to Jesus, you have to go through Mary. In other words, to get to Christ, or to get to Christ consciousness, where you realize that you are a Christ, just like Jesus, you have to go through Kundalini. You have to tap into your Kundalini energy. And so they're trying to draw all of these religions back to Rome under Mary, or Kundalini. That is the connector of all of these religions, because they all broke away from Babylon. Now they're trying to draw them all back together again through these occult teachings, and that's what this is all about. So everyone's being drawn back to Mary, or Kundalini, Isis, Ishtar, take your pick. But this is the connecting thing that's going to draw everyone back. Kundalini energy, or Shakti energy, from the Eastern mysticism, tapping into your serpent force. And that's why when you have fake Christians like Rodney Howard-Browne talking about a great awakening and how they slap you on the forehead and people start shaking around violently, that's Kundalini energy being awakened, is what that is. It's a Kundalini awakening. And so he's pushing for a great awakening. You have thousands of pastors talking about an awakening, a spiritual awakening. This is what is coming. Whether they realize it or not, this is what's coming. This is the great awakening in the last days that they're talking about, whether they know it or not. I believe he certainly knows it. And he's tapped in with Alex Jones. Alex Jones had him on the channel. Alex Jones talks about a great spiritual awakening. He's a New Ager. Alex Jones is a New Ager pretending to be a Christian. So this is multifaceted. They act like radical Christians to tear down Christianity, to make it look bad, while simultaneously pushing these New Age teachings that we're all connected to the universe, we're all one, we have to rise up against the bankers. So it's multifaceted what they're doing here. Okay, they're achieving more than one thing at the same time, tearing down religion while building up the New Age movement and so forth. Here we have great spiritual awakening. Pastors lay hands on Donald Trump. So you have Rodney Howard-Browne connected to Donald Trump. Donald Trump was trained at a Jesuit college, Fordham University. His kids went to Georgetown Jesuit College, such and such. And so here you have these connections to all these fake Christians, to Donald Trump, talking about a spiritual awakening. So again, multifaceted, making the church look radical by having Trump lead up, acting like a Hitler and so forth. All these clowns acting like lunatics, and they're talking about taking over society, having a theocracy built, and so making Christianity look bad. Simultaneously, they're pushing for a spiritual awakening, just like everyone else. So multifaceted, but this is what's going on, I believe. And so you have Rodney Howard-Browne connected to Donald Trump. You have Donald Trump connected to Alex Jones. You have Rodney Howard-Browne connected to Alex Jones and so forth. All these overlaps. So it's pretty obvious to me what's going on. It's all strong delusion, what the Bible talks about. And so here you have, as Trump watches amid coronavirus, SoCal, Southern California megachurch pastor tells worshipers to stay home. So Greg Laurie connected to Donald Trump. And Greg Laurie, I haven't trusted for a long time. He's insanely ecumenical, steeped in ecumenical activities with Roman Catholics and so forth. So I don't trust him for a second. You can if you want to. But you have him calling for a spiritual awakening, how spiritual awakening begins at his Harvest Ministries. This logo is a red flag right off the bat because that is a yin-yang logo. It's your X, by the way. Remember, X Factor, X-Files. X marks the spot, and that's by balancing opposites, right? Well, what do you have here? You have your yin-yang, which is the same as this. Your black, a little bit of white in the black, a little bit of black in the white, and similar here, you have a blue and a blue and an orange and orange. It's in the form of an X, and so to me, this is a huge red flag. Greg Laurie and his ecumenical activities connected to Donald Trump, calling for a spiritual awakening and so forth. So again, multifaceted, I believe. I don't trust him for a second. You can if you want to. Do your own research. And that applies for anyone I'm talking about here. Do your own research. Don't trust me about what I'm saying about the Jesuits. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about Donald Trump. I could be wrong about all of these individuals, Rodney Howard-Browne. Do your own research. I'm just sharing my opinions with you about what's going on. Arrive at your own conclusions. But I believe I'm pretty close to accurate on this, being accurate. So it's all about balancing opposites, order and chaos, masculinity and femininity, day and night. It's all about balancing these opposites to bring about a spiritual evolution for mankind, the X factor, balancing opposites. There you have your X factor and so forth. It's all in our faces. They're putting these occult teachings right before our eyes, subliminally, so we take them in, not realizing you're taking this in, but you are. With all the X factor, X-Files, X, all this stuff, you're taking it in, Xbox. And pretty soon it's like, well, what's X, X, X. Why am I thinking about X all the time? And then in come the Oprahs and so forth talking about, well, the X represents you balancing your opposites. It was found in ancient Egypt and blah, 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 blah. So they're conditioning people for what's coming, And here we have the book of Revelation, balancing opposites. Keep this in mind. The Bible warns us. It warns us that the false prophet is going to do this. It says this right here. And he, the false prophet, is going to cause all, both small and great, so those are opposites, rich and poor opposites, free and bond opposites, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads where their third eye is. Remember that, the awakening of the third eye, the spiritual awakening. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here's wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man, and his number is 666. So here you have the number 666 associated with the forehead and the balancing of opposites right here. This is what's coming. And if we go right here, 666. This is a triangle, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and in numerology, this would be a 6 because 6 plus 0 equals 6, 6 plus 0 equals 6, 6 plus 0 equals 6. 6 is a number of perfection. It's the first perfect number in the numerical chart. In occultism, it's a perfect number. They have the perfect cube. So here you have your body, mind, and spirit being balanced, balancing your threefold nature. You were created in the image and likeness of God, they say. You were created with the body, mind, and spirit. You need to balance those, and then you can become as God. So here's your perfected body, your perfected mind, or perfected body, mind, and then your perfected spirit. 666. And you see that even here at the Oral Roberts University, which is a bogus university, totally bogus in my opinion. But you have it right here, the triangle, the flame on top. He's been awakened, the spirit's been awakened, and your mind and your body, or your yin and your yang being balanced out, your yang and your yin being balanced out to awaken your third eye so you can evolve spiritually. This is what it's all about, 666. Balancing yourself out, 666, and then here, 666 on your forehead, just like you have Baphomet on his forehead. Here you have the spirit rising up from the forehead, being awakened and enlightened. And so this is all warned about in the Bible, only the Bible, because no other book on the planet talks about this. Not the Quran, not the Hindu Vedas, nothing. They're all inspired from these mystical Babylonian teachings, and they're going to draw all of these religions back together. Meanwhile, no one's being warned about this because their holy books don't warn them about this. Only the God of the Bible warns us about this because he loves us, he cares about us. He doesn't want us to fall into this trap and spend eternity apart from him. But that's not what these occultists want. They want everyone to come together. So we evolve spiritually, all of us, and we're awakened with this flame from our foreheads. And that's what the Bible says. The false prophet is going to cause fire to come down from the heavens. And that is Kundalini awakening coming into the forehead, the spiritual awakening, a false fire coming, awakening mankind to the reality that they are God, we're all connected, we're all one. So it's a false spiritual revival, a mockery of the true Pentecost, Penta, 5. And that is where the Spirit, fire came down on the apostles and so forth and awakened them to the reality that Jesus is God and all this kind of stuff. And the Holy Ghost came into them, a fire awakening. So there's a mockery of that in the last days where a false fire comes down and opens the eyes of the world to the belief that they are God. We're all connected. So it's a false fire that people are going to receive in the last days. And God's going to allow that pour down on mankind as he pours out his wrath on mankind. And they're going to end up in the lake of fire because of it, receiving that mark on the forehead or on their right hands. And that goes back to Q. Spirit, QAnon. People are walking into this trap. I'll leave that with you. God bless. Walk vigilantly. Be sober as you walk forward. This is a trap, in my opinion. Be aware of this, at the very least.